Sisters who watch. Sisters who watch. Sisters who watch. The Blackening. Hey, y'all. Hey. Hi, family.
Hello.
Welcome to Sisters Who Watch.
I'm Shelby.
And I'm Laura, and we're sisters who watch everything. TV, movies, sports, concerts, and even black-led horror comedy films. We love to watch, and we love talking about it even more. Today we're watching
The
Blackening.
Lionsgate's horror comedy film.
Woo!
Ooh,
Happy Halloween!
Season. Happy Halloween! Not my favorite holiday, but feeling the spirit. We have our orange on.
Orange and black. We're being festive.
Festive Halloween vibes.
So, Shelby, you're not a horror girly?
No, shocker. I think life's scary enough. Why watch a horror film?
Life is so scary.
Don't need to be scared by the content I consume. Let's keep it positive, people. Please.
Yes. And if you've listened to us, I've talked about how I love a comedy. I love a reality show that just makes me laugh, makes me just feel good, right? Yes. Whereas I do not like horror films. I hate scary movies. Coming into The Blackening, we were a bit unsure about this movie because we don't like scary things, right?
And it's hard to know when people say it won't be scary.
Right.
Everyone has a different perspective on what scary is.
Yeah.
People be lying. And everyone has a different tolerance. But I eventually came around because I wanted to support.
Yes.
And I had heard that it wasn't as scary as you would think. Like, it was more horror comedy than horror.
Definitely. And I will say one of my favorite movies ever is Get Out by Jordan Peele.
Yes,
very iconic film.
So
I do love that movie. And I've recently watched Megan this year. And I
thought you didn't like horror.
I know I don't like horror. Those are probably the two horror movies I've seen in the past 5 years. But Megan, it was so busy. Everyone was talking about it, and they were doing the dance, and it was so trendy. And I actually really liked both those movies. So I'm a little bit more open-minded about horror. But those aren't true horror movies, right? So
no, they're more grounded. Like Get Out, if anything, is like a horror thriller or a thriller with horror elements.
Yeah.
And it's more dramatic. It's more grounded. It's scary because it's realistic. It's not scary because it's a slasher film and ghosts and evil spirits. Like, that's not for me. I rather have something more grounded and psychological.
I totally agree. So The Blackening, this was highly anticipated. It came out Juneteenth, and we're just now covering it because Halloween. But tell us a little bit more about the background of this film.
Yes. So this movie is actually based on a short film that was done by a comedy group called 3Peat, based out of Chicago. And the film premiered at the 2022 Toronto Film Festival last year. So it has splashy, buzzy premiere, and it's directed by Tim Story, who directed Ride Along and Think Like a Man, and it's written by Tracy Oliver and Dwayne Perkins. Tracy Oliver of Girls Trip and Harlem fame, and then Dwayne Perkins, who's written for various comedies and is a part of the comedy troupe 3Peat. So exciting that we have all kinds of Black talent with proven track records here coming together.
Totally. We love Black stories. You know, this pod, we've talked about a good amount of them. And we also reviewed Harlem season 2. So if you're a fan of Grace Byers, Tracy Oliver, go check out that episode.
Yes.
We're big fans of that show. So yeah, coming into this movie, I didn't really know what to expect. I saw the trailers. It looked funny, but also looked scary. So I wasn't sure if I was super excited about it. But it came out Juneteenth. That got, a lot of buzz, and recently became a federal holiday. So that's a big deal.
Similarly, again, had heard positive buzz coming out of TIFF. And then I have a friend that works at Lionsgate, and she was excited about the movie. So just being in the industry, I had heard a few things, so I was looking forward to it. And I thought the premise was funny. And the tagline for the film was, if everyone's Black in the movie, who's going to die first? And I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Because the trope is if you're Black, you die first in a horror movie. So what happens when we're all Black? And I'd say over the last few years, right? You mentioned Get Out. Last year, Candyman came out. There's like a resurgence of Black horror content.
Right.
And again, not biggest horror person, but I do like to support. Like when they have a strong Black cast or Black writer director, I'm like, I gotta come out there and support. And
Definitely.
of course, seeing familiar faces was a plus. I know Grace Byers from Harlem and Empire, Sinqua Walls from Power back in the day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was in
And
a
White Man
Netflix
Can't
movie,
Jump.
Resort to Love. And White Man Can Jump this year. He's
which we
having a
reviewed
moment.
too.
Yes. And then Antoinette Robinson from Dear White People. Like, I like how they had a nostalgic Black cast from like recent content that hopefully like a lot of people would know. And of course, Yvonne Orji from Insecure, she was in this movie. So they had a good ensemble cast.
And basically just the premise, right? It's all these Black people in a cabin in the woods. They're reuniting from college. They're all college friends. They said about 10 years later, so I assume they're like late 20s, early 30s. And they're all coming back together, you know, to celebrate Juneteenth, to reconnect. And they choose a cabin in the woods. We don't really know how they came upon this decision, but they did. So that's where we start at the beginning of this film. Yvonne Orji and Jay Farrow, they're a couple, and they go into the house first. And then chaos ensues.
And that's where like the kind of horror part comes in.
Yeah.
They find a board game called the Blackening with a very racist Black person on the front.
Yeah. Yes.
And they start playing it. And then, to your point, Laura, all hell breaks loose because as they play the game, if they answer a question wrong, they die. Crazy. Drama.
Yeah.
So they end up disappearing before their friends make it to the cabin. So the friends make it. They don't see Yvonne and Jay. And like, oh, don't know what's wrong. And then eventually they realize, oh, something sinister is going on here. They didn't just go out for a drink or something. They're missing.
Exactly. Okay, so some themes coming into this movie. Blackness and belonging are the two main themes of this movie because the whole game is basically about like, how Black are you? Who's the Blackest in the group? If you can't answer these questions Black people should know, then you die. I didn't know some of the answers to the questions. But that was one of my favorite parts, seeing them try and answer all these questions.
Same. And I think it's smart because I know like Blackness, it's always kind of debated, like, and even in college, like, oh, how Black is someone? And it's something that Black people talk about. So I think it was smart of them to tackle that on screen in like a very topical, comedic way.
And when they were trying to figure out, oh, who's the most Black person and that person has to die, they're like, well, I have a white dad and you're actually from Africa. Like, you aren't, you're like technically like the Blackest genetically, right? Because you're not mixed up with, whatever was happening in America as an African American,
and then
right?
They were like, you're the most politically active, so you're the Blackest because you're like always on the front lines. So it was like this whole debate.
Right. What makes you Black?
What makes you Black? Mm-hmm.
So it's funny, but it's also very real because people have this discussion all the time. As we saw, Clifton felt, on the outs. He didn't feel very Black because he didn't know how to play spades and he's kind of nerdy, right? So he, didn't feel this sense of belonging and was very resentful about that.
Even though Clifton's not the best character, I think they do a good job of trying to explain his motives because not feeling a part of something, right, not having belonging can be very isolating and then sadly like lead you down a dark path. I feel like that's what they say a lot of times with like trigger warning, like school shooters. A lot of times, right, these are people who are lonely, isolated, don't feel like they belong.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that the environment you're in and not being a part of something can sometimes lead you down a very
totally
bad path.
Yeah. Clifton's origin story is very common for people who lash out and turn to violence, to retaliate against the
Mm-hmm.
people who, kind of bullied them or made them feel other, right? I know we went to, predominantly white schools and everything. Have there been times that you felt like you didn't belong in certain spaces or like didn't feel Black enough?
I think you can not feel very welcome or like you belong in a predominantly white space. Shocker, right? If you go to like a all girls private school like we did that was predominantly white, you might not always feel the most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember after I had left our more diverse middle school and started at our Catholic school, the first year I was there, I only hung out with the Black people. Hindsight, I don't think I realized in the moment why I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, oh yeah, I was just looking for people like me that I could connect with in this very like new environment. As a kid, I was like, whoa, this is a lot.
Right.
And then in college, I think it's different. You can be at a PWI and even be in a Black community. And there can sadly sometimes be divisions and people being like, oh, I've had this struggle, so that makes me Blacker than you. And I think that is so backwards. Like, let's just all celebrate being Black and be united. Why do we have to have conflict?
But it's like, why are we trying to have the struggle Olympics, right? We can definitely relate to, not, having that sense of belonging, being in white spaces or like Black people being exclusive, right? That happens. So
I kid you not, I did not have that until I went to college. Because in middle school, high school, elementary school, it didn't matter if you were African or Caribbean or African American. We're all just Black and we all just like connected over that experience. Yeah. But then unfortunately going to college, there's a lot more division and separation.
Totally agree. So let's get into our favorite moments. We talked about it, college friends coming back together, reuniting. We love to see that.
And it was cool seeing the different friendships. There were some beefs, some drama from the past people had to deal through. And it was honestly giving like The Best Man, one of my favorite movies. In that movie, they're coming together for a wedding. But it was cool to see them like playing cards and joking around, making their Kool-Aid drinks, like just fun.
That was definitely some of my favorite moments in the beginning where they're just kind of kikiing, playing spades, being like, let's get to Boston, right? Making the Kool-Aid, just kind of hanging out, having fun, dancing before all the chaotic things hit the fan. Once they start playing the game, they're lured into this game room. I have to say, yes, the game was racist and horrible, but I did like seeing them answer the questions. I like them trying to figure out, oh my gosh, how many seasons was dark-skinned Aunt Viv on before light-skinned Aunt Viv came on with Fresh Prince? Like, that was really funny. And one of my favorite moments for sure was when they were all trying to name the 5 Black characters who were in Friends. That was so funny.
It was funny because they all were like, well, I didn't watch it, but
I never saw the show.
I think Aisha Tyler was in it. And then it's like, wait, y'all all watch this.
I know. Sinkhole Walls was like, wait, so y'all all watch Friends? After you're saying that's so funny because a lot of Black people are like, no, Friends is whack. And I think
never watched that. Living Single All the Way, Girlfriends.
Right. And I think hindsight, Friends was, there is a lot of hype. I think Friends is probably a bit overhyped, but I remember I watched it and I think I was in either middle school and I remember enjoying it when I watched it. Yeah. But yeah, it was funny how all the Black people were like, yo, we've never seen that show. We don't really like to claim
to name the 5 Black characters.
I know. I didn't even think there were 5 Black characters.
I did not know. I only knew Aisha Tyler.
Only Aisha Tyler.
No idea who the others were.
I wonder if people actually know the other character. I had no idea what they were talking about. So that was...
I feel like they just were good guessers.
Really funny. But the right answer was, I don't watch that show. I watch Living Single. So that's very funny. It's not about knowing the 5 characters in Friends. Because if you're really Black, you wouldn't know 5 characters in Friends. So it's interesting. I also really liked when... they were like, what is the second verse and lift every voice and sing? That is such a niche. I can't even sing the first verse. So when Grace Byers broke out into song and got the second verse, that was very funny. because everyone was so shook that she knew that.
They get annoyed playing the game and have to decide, right, who's the blackest. They choose Clifton. So Clifton goes out to get killed, and they see him get killed. And then they all decide, okay, we gotta like fight these evil twin brothers trying to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I think more fun parts start happening, when they're like trying to fight and survive.
One of my favorite moments was when Grace Byers' character Allison, she has the Wolverine arrows in her hands and she's like doing all these weird moves, but she's also like on Molly and Adderall. Like she's on a combination of drugs and she's like dancing and fighting. I thought that was really funny. And she got him. I don't know how she did that, all those moves, but I loved that moment.
Mm-hmm. Shanika trying to go to the other side of a lake to get help. And she's like, oh, I'm sure you don't think I can swim in this lake. She jumps in the lake, starts swimming. And I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. And I also loved when Shanika was trying to get King up in the tree. He was like, oh, I'll climb the tree. And I'll like ask for help or something. I'll watch you. And he could not get up the tree. And Shanika had to help him. I also liked that.
Women saving the day.
Always.
Speaking of women saving the day, we also had Lisa end up killing the other twin. And she had been, I'd say, one of the more quiet characters. Like, oh, I just do everything good and right. But she, when she needed to, stood up there and was like, I'm going to beat this man. You are not going to kill me and my man and my friends. So it was great to kind of see her get that confidence and kick some butt.
If you've been listening to our podcast at all, and basically every single piece of content we have watched, the woman saved the day over and over and over again.
I think it's the theme of just like women saving the day.
Period. Beyond fiction, just everything. And
that's it. Women saved the day.
Exhausting. But it was really cool. You know, Lisa with her candlestick, she was whacking that guy. And she was like, oh, are you still judging my choice of weapon now? I liked that. So that was great. And we were saying that the men didn't really do that much in the movie, right? King was injured. He was just...
He got shot by an arrow. Right. So he could, even though he was like, I'm the most gangster, I have a gun, he couldn't really do anything. He had to kind of be protected the whole time by everyone else.
Yeah. And Namdi, even though he's the biggest guy there, he wasn't really doing that much. Like, we didn't see him really beating up anyone.
No. And Dwayne was kind of like the comic relief, and he also was high on drugs at the time. So he couldn't do much either.
No.
He was just there for a good time and to stay safe.
That's it. Good for him. Good for him. Minding his business.
I'd say another favorite moment was Lisa, Dwayne, and Namdi making up. Basically, Lisa and Namdi had dated in college, but he cheated on her, so they broke up. But they secretly get back together before this trip. Lisa and Dwayne are best friends, and she doesn't tell Dwayne this because he's still really mad at Namdi for breaking her heart. But he finds out, of course, on this trip, so gets really mad. But at the end, they all make up. I mean, they survived like a life-threatening situation, so they should, be more willing to forgive. But I think they realized and saw each other's sides more. And so it was good to have a nice positive resolution of that friendship.
It was nice to see all of them make up, I agree. But I do not trust Namdi at all. I mean, they said that...
He's so hot.
Exactly. He's too hot. And he had cheated on her a bunch in the past. And like King was saying, he was like, you say this every couple years, bro. You're like, I'm changed. I'm a new man. And then he, cheats on some girl again. So, girl better watch out.
Yes. I want to hope that he can change. Fingers crossed. I'm concerned.
Don't hold your breath.
It's hard to believe it.
Don't hold your breath. Okay, Shelby, what were some of your least favorite moments in The Blackening?
Well, of course, seeing Jay Farrow be the first one to die because he answered the question wrong of the Blackening game. I was like, oh, shoot, this is turning left. Like, this is serious. And he's so funny. So I was like, oh, I'm excited to see the movie. So the fact that he was the first person to die, I was like, dang. And then Yvonne Orji died too.
We see her at the door trying to get out, and we see him approaching her. But that was about it. Like, we didn't see how she died, right?
And I think that like shows that the movie was less about the gore and the slasher component. It was more about the kind of topical story about blackness than true horror, which I liked.
Yeah, so it was sad seeing those two die, especially because they're probably the two biggest names, right? Jay Farrow and Yvonne Orji. So I wish we definitely saw more of them. But I guess it was good that we saw, more fresh faces get more screen time. So that was good to see.
I think it made sense, and also probably helped them save money, because the bigger the name, right, the more expensive you are. So the fact that they maybe had a few days on shoot helped.
Definitely. Yeah, and another one of our least favorite moments was, of course, those twins, the twins from that little mini mart that we see in the beginning, just attacking Black people. We don't want to see that. And the Confederate flag in the basement.
And they had these really creepy black masks and boots. Like, they just gave awful energy. And they were using arrows to kill. Like, who uses arrows to kill people?
The arrows were so bizarre.
I was like, what era are we in?
It was giving Confederacy. I was like, what is...
Literally. Like, they hadn't lived the last 200 years. They just plucked from the Civil War to now.
I know. I guess something that I wish they could have done better was explain why they used arrows as the mechanism. Because that was such a unique choice, right? And I think it was a big part of the marketing and the movie. Like, why arrows? They didn't explain that, right?
No. It was their weapon of choice.
Right. So
very weird.
We didn't full out say it, but basically Clifton is the one who was behind all of this.
Turns out to be the mastermind of the plot, and is mad at these foes from college because they made fun of him at a party for not knowing how to play spades, and they wouldn't teach him. So he got distraught, left the party, got into a car accident and killed someone, had to go to prison, and came out of prison with this vendetta to get back at all of them.
Wild. A lot to unpack.
Yeah.
One, it was so funny. I think it was Sinquan Walls was like, only 4 years for manslaughter? That's a grad degree. Right? What? That's grad
Literally.
School.
That's
very
weird.
Bizarre. And for him to blame, hitting someone with a car on them and ruining their lives, that is such a stretch. And for him to be planning this.
Take ownership for reckless driving. Right? Just because you were told you couldn't play spades, keep it together.
I know, so you got drunk. They didn't tell you to drive off. They didn't tell you to drink out of your mind, right? So,
no.
For those reasons, for our categories today, we love to hate spades because spades is a part of the murderer origin story.
Storyline here. Yeah. We love playing spades.
Yes.
Our grandparents taught us how to play. We, to this day, play. We're partners. But in this movie, spades were kind of like a villain.
It really was. And it's interesting because we were recently on the Black People of Paramore podcast. Shout out to Sequoia Holmes. And, you got to bring a hot take whenever you're on the show. And Shelby's was, she thinks Black people need to play cards. And I know, Shelby, don't set off someone like Clifton, please. And and it's interesting because I do think that for some people, cards can feel very exclusive because that's a very Black American Southern cultural thing, right? So not everyone grows up with that experience, but I think people should, I'm happy to teach someone to play spades, right? I think it's such an important part of Black culture. So I do think we should all be able to play, and we can, learn and play as a group. It's such a big part of the tradition. But a lot of people are like,
Right.
I'm not going to teach you, right? And that's toxic. That is toxic.
Very toxic. So don't be like these characters to Clifton. Teach people how to play
Teach
spades.
someone how to play spades. And if you're afraid, reach out, y'all, audience, reach out to us. We'll teach you.
Sisters who watch, we'll teach you. We are going to create a training curriculum.
Yeah, a master
on
class.
how to play spades.
Yeah.
Masterclass. We will help you all because there's a reason it's talked about in movies, right? The Best Man, Blackening. Spades is a big part of culture for us.
Is.
So we have to keep it alive. We have to.
Right. So we love to hate spades for that reason in this movie because we personally love it and the characters loved it. However, it set off Clifton and created his villain arc. So
yeah, complicated relationship with him.
Yes. And for that reason, we do hate to hate Clifton. The reasoning didn't make sense. You're mad at them for something that happened 10 years ago and you created this whole plan. You found this house, you found these twins, you paid them to go kill all these people that you haven't seen in 10 years. It didn't make any sense.
No. I'm maligned. He's annoying.
Evil.
And I didn't like how he was trying to be so innocent and nerdy. Stop with the persona. You're a bad guy.
I know.
We don't feel bad for you. Also, shockingly, right, the white twins that were killing everybody, don't like them. Clearly hate to hate.
Yeah. They had a Confederate flag in their basement.
Ugh. Not the energy we need or want.
No.
Yeah, if you're watching, our faces were just disgust as we were talking about them. And of course, the racist blackening game. Despite the funny questions.
Very problematic.
It was very problematic. And if you didn't answer a question right, you were going to die.
Right.
That's never okay.
So, did Clifton make this game? I guess he did.
He had to have. Right?
Yeah.
Or did these white people have this game?
Right. Did the game exist or did Clifton make the game? Or did he, like, adapt to the game?
It makes me think it could be like a Get Out situation where these white men are part of this family that are crazy and they've been playing this game for like ever. Or, to your point, maybe Clifton was like, oh, I have this idea. And they just joined his plan.
Right.
But I could see either option because that house had too many cameras. They had too many arrows for this to not have been a well-oiled machine.
Right. There's just a lot of questions. Like, it was the twins' house, but did they already have a lot of cameras? Did Clifton turn this into his lair? How did Clifton meet these guys? It doesn't really...
And he said he only paid them like $100 per person or something. And then Dwayne was like, I'm only worth like $100.
Oh my goodness. That's very depressing. $100 for my life? That is so bizarre.
Come on now.
Right.
That's
and
crazy.
Did this family have this creepy lair with this well? And it doesn't... Did Clifton make this? Is he friends with these white people or did he just meet them? It doesn't make sense. And also, how did Yvonne Orji find this house? Because clearly Clifton, did he know that they were booking this? Or did he, like, make sure that Yvonne Orji found this house?
Book this particular house.
How?
There is some...
Did he plant the seeds? Like, they know that there was going to be a 10-year reunion or something? It doesn't make sense.
He had to have been cyber stalking or snooping these people. He had to have known that they were going to have this reunion. And I think he either planted this Airbnb so Yvonne Orji would book it, or he found out that they booked it and he was like, okay, I have to get in this house before they do and find someone to kill them.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot holes. It doesn't really make sense.
I guess we're supposed to have, right, like willful suspension of disbelief. Like, we don't need to know everything.
I know. I mean, this is what people are listening
Thinking
for.
about it too hard.
We're listening too hard. We're trying to analyze and dissect the movie, but it's not making sense. So let's take a step back. Or what did you love to love in this movie?
Yes. I really loved, shockingly, all the women. In particular, Allison, Grace Byers' character, I thought that she was funny, one of the more lighthearted characters. She stood her ground, was very confident, and I like how she ended up at the end like saving the day and helping kill one of the guys, even though she was completely like intoxicated. Like
Yeah.
she was very high, but was still able to fight off these
Oh,
men.
yeah. I totally agree. We talked about how we loved how both Allison and Shanika and Lisa saved the day. They did what the men could not do in this movie.
Trio.
You know, Shanika swimming in the water. And she was also very funny and a light character, so I really enjoy her. And Lisa knocking out the twin with the candle, I thought that was great. The woman just really crushed this movie. They were awesome.
They crushed it. Big fans.
And also, I want to throw into my hate to hate cabins in the woods. Why are we going to them? Yvonne Orji, yes, Clifton probably planted this Airbnb, but in what world did you think that, let's do a cabin in the woods? No.
Nope, not a good idea.
No, do not invite me to a cabin in the woods.
I will say no. And
I will decline.
Suggest a different idea.
I will decline.
Let's go to the beach.
Yes.
Let's go to a city.
Yes.
Let's do anything but a cabin in the woods.
Let's go to a villa. Like, let's stay out of the woods. Let's stay out of the woods.
Not for me.
Yes.
Not a camper.
No. All right, Shelby. On to red flag, green flag. 1, 2, 3. Is it a red flag to make fun of someone for not knowing how to play spades and not teach them?
Yes. Not just because this is Clifton's origin story, but I think if you're going to make fun of someone for not knowing how to play, then you should help teach them. Like, offer to teach them or to help or to be like, oh, there's a beginner's table, Like,
right.
Create an environment where they might not feel as alone or they can help. Because I think most people I talk to don't know play spades. Like, oh, there's a stigma. Like, oh, I don't know how to play by now. It's so hard to be taught or learn. Or, oh, it's just so competitive. I don't want to get involved. Or I don't understand the rules. Everyone plays it differently. So trying to combat some of that by teaching people, I think could solve a lot of our problems. So I do think it is a red flag to not teach someone.
Definitely. I think it's even a red flag to like make fun of someone. I think it really depends on the delivery. Maybe like one joke or something. But like we said, there's such a stigma and people do feel like very insecure about not knowing how to play cards, right? So let's not be making fun of people.
Okay, Laura, question for you. Is it a green flag to plan a vacation in the woods? I feel like I know your answer.
Not a green flag. Red, 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 bright red, 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 red,
especially if you're a black person.
Yes.
If you're...
I mean, maybe, I know
that's what I'm
some
saying.
people love the outdoors.
They love the outdoors. They want a cabin adventure.
Right. They want to be roughing it.
Park moment.
Yes.
They want a camp. If that's your energy and you feel safe and comfortable,
great.
Go for it. It's a no for me. I think it's a red flag, not a green flag.
For some, maybe. Not for us. Okay. What are your overall parting thoughts?
How are we feeling?
The Blackening. Is it a wait or a watch?
I think it's a watch. I think if you are looking for a lighter Halloween horror movie, this could be it. Because I'm not about to watch Chucky or Halloween
The Exorcist,
or Friday the 13th or new Freddy movie. No. I do not want to go to Five Nights at Freddy's. I want to watch a rom-com, but if I'm going to watch a horror, it's going to be like this or like Get Out. So I do think it's not too scary. It has funny moments, especially, I'd say if you're like Black. It's like very focused on the Black experience. And there are like those niche jokes like we talked about with like the Friends one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think anyone could enjoy this movie, especially if you're not super into scary, but it's perfect for spooky season, right? We're watching this in honor of Halloween, and I think it's great for the season, especially for people who do not like horror. Shelby and I are very anti-horror movies, but I think it's funny. it definitely could have been funnier, but it wasn't super laugh out loud. But it was light, but it still had, you know, the horror elements and the scary moments. So I thought it was a balanced, well done movie.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, watch it during spooky season, but you don't have to, like, rush, you know? Watch it when you can. Like, I watched it on a plane, and it was a great plane movie.
Yes. And it's currently on Stars, so that's where I watched it, if you have Stars.
Stars, the very black network, right? They have power.
Power, yeah.
Run the world, P-Valley, yeah. Stars really just going for it.
They got it. And as we've talked about, the movie isn't perfect. It's not laugh out loud funny. It definitely could have been funnier. There was some plot holes there. The connection with the brothers who own the house, that was unclear. So I wish there was a bit more background, but most people aren't thinking about the movie as much as us. So
no, we're going more in depth than most people. So if you're just looking for a chill watch, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Definitely. Okay, on to our What to Watch segment. What are we looking forward to related to the Blackening?
Yes. Seeing this movie, watching the cast, I was just really nostalgic. Because like, oh my gosh, Yvonne was in Insecure. Antoinette was in Dear White People. Grace was in Empire in Harlem. Jermaine Fowler, who played Clifton, was in the Coming to America sequel. I was just thinking about all the things these people have been in. So it made me think, oh, maybe I should go back and watch some of this stuff. Especially given the lack of like scripted shows, like new scripted shows coming out due to the strikes. I'm like, maybe I will rewatch Insecure.
Yes, support Black content. Go support these artists. A lot of them are more niche, right? They're not huge stars. So let's go support them and watch Tracy Oliver's content. Support Black artists. Well, thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of Sisters Who Watch, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you stream podcasts. It makes a big difference, and 5 stars would mean a lot to us. And go check us out on social media. We're everywhere at Sisters Who Watch on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. We are there, so go check us out.
And if you liked this, please follow us and subscribe so you get up-to-date notifications when we drop a new episode. There's also like Q&A questions and polls if you're listening on Spotify. So engage. We want to hear from y'all. And you can also DM us on Instagram or email us, sisterswhowatch@gmail.com, if you have any questions or comments or want to give us suggestions on what to watch next.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all. Stay watching.
Stay watching. Everything. Happy Halloween.